Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for coming. So I see we have is it Maya, Ross, Rich, and Luke. So thanks for coming. We have you muted right now. Can we try unmuting, Greg?
They have themselves muted.
Okay, perfect. As long as they can,
yep.
Feel free to speak up.
I
just wanted to say, feel free to speak up any questions you have. And I think I'll just jump right in. So this paper was proposed by Chris Laser for me to present, and he does a lot of Mayan archaeology. I do not, but the nice thing about this paper is it kind of dovetails into a few of the other papers that we've had in previous journal clubs dealing with using Google Earth and digital models and that sort of thing. So I mean, it really fits into what we've been talking about. We kind of had a mini workshop, I think, last time on using Google Earth to do measurements and do alignments. So I'm going to focus more on the technical bits of how they did it and not so much on their conclusions or any assumptions they make. I'm just going to take the archaeology part at face value and then talk more about the techniques. But yeah, jump in at any point if anybody has any questions. See if I can share this. Okay. Everybody see that?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So the title's using virtual reality to understand astronomical knowledge and historical landscapes at pre-classic Cerros. I hope I'm saying that right, Caros or Cerros in Belize, which is a Mayan site. And the authors are Jeffrey Ryan and Susan Milbrath, I think. So, and just if you haven't been following what we've been doing, and that's something that we've really been focusing a lot in our group here, is just making digital models, landscape, archaeology, landscape, just perspective, bringing that in and connecting kind of the two things, the landscapes with the buildings and architecture. So I'm going to start with just orienting everybody. So it's Cerros is, I don't know, can you guys see the cursor?
Yes, we can. It's fine.
Okay, perfect. So Cerros is on this little peninsula here in this bay in Belize, up here on the Yucatan Peninsula. And this is sort of the master site plan, and all this outlying stuff, from what I can gather in the paper, is just sort of an older historic village that's been there. And then the civic area is this on this prominent little perch going off into the bay, and that's what we're going to focus on today. All the architecture we're talking about is up in this area here. And I think chronologically, this area was populated and used. Even this area up here predates the civic architecture that was built up. And there's three structures we're going to talk about. There's 5C the second, which is the first structure, structure 6, which immediately precedes 5C the second, and then structure 4 is the latest. And keep this in mind for later on in the discussion. 5C the first, actually, it wasn't totally clear to me in the reading, but it seems like this 5C the second was buried underneath what ultimately ended up being 5C the first. And I'll talk about that. So so the sequence of events is they built 5C the second, then they built structure 6, and while they're doing that, they built 5C first on top of 5C the second, and then later on they built structure 4. So the numbers are completely backwards. So to make it fun. So here's just jumping right in. Here's the model that they produced. And so this is that previous map, this little section here. So structure 6 is this large platform mound, and a 6B, and I'll definitely mention this later on, is kind of where the focus of structure 6 is, and it is a replica of 5C the second, which is back in the back here, and then structure 4 is this other platform that's facing east here. And the one thing I want to say about this rendering, and this is one of the cool things you can do in virtual reality in the model, is they rendered this and put this all together, but from my understanding, this contemporarily wouldn't existed, right? 5C second was built first, and then they built structure 6, and then immediately destroyed this, and then 50 years, 100 years later, they built structure 4. So it's kind of neat to put it all in context, and I think that's because that's as we have the understanding of the site right now. But in time, this view wouldn't have existed. Okay. So in a crash course of what they did is they took existing archaeological plans and surveys, and then they drew two-dimensional plots, basically kind of like a site plan. And then from there, they raised everything up and created polynomials, polygons of these structures. So they basically turned it into three-dimensional structures. And again, based on the excavation information and the best information they have to reconstruct the buildings in this virtual space. And it was a little bit different than we're traditionally doing with photogrammetry and SketchUp and those sorts of things. This is more of an architectural approach of reconstructing a building in a geometric way. And then finally, once they have those models, they've imported them into Google Earth. They can add textures to them and make a more kind of photorealistic model, and then put it in appropriately in the landscape. So it's very similar to what we've been doing in our society, except they're doing it from kind of an architectural and kind of like more of a civil engineering approach to build up this model and then put it in a 3D space. And then once they have it in that space and it is attached to Google Earth, then they're able to go in and interact with the buildings, move around the buildings, and that's where the virtual reality and that's where I think this paper is trying to focus on showing that work. Okay. So the first building they talk about is 5C the second, and it's a small temple. So they note that it has cosmological descriptions on these panels on the sides of the building. It's the first major construction at Cerros, and when I say first major, I think they're referring to the civic plazas, not the, there was occupation there. This is the first kind of monumental building built, if I understand it correctly. And let's see. There definitely was evidence that this site was used and important to the Mayan before the site was used. So then I'm just going to accept that as the point. So here's their reconstruction of it. They were able to put, again, so it's a made up building, kind of think of it architectural or a civil engineering plan, but then they were able to take photographs and put on those faces, the friezes there, to get a really nice photo, kind of realistic model of it. And then also, unlike what we're doing, is they're in an environment where you can move around them, right? So you can move this around and interact with it. So the language they use is a little bit different than I think the way we talk about basically the sun coordinates. But when they say the sun's zenith on the horizon reaches 70 degrees, I think they're really talking about basically where the azimuth is of where the sun's rising. And let me just jump ahead to this slide here. I think this sums up what they're trying to say. So this is sitting at site 5C, looking at 70 degrees. And they note in the paper that when it's over the land, that's the dry season. And when it's over the water, it's the wet season. And so they're making the argument that this is codifying a marker of when you have this change of the seasons. And this is why this prominent location was important. And let me show you that. So this gray, black and white image is from the paper. It's from Google Earth, and it's showing the prominence. So this spot here is where the structures are built. And then all the way over here with this, you can see it just catches this tip of land here at 70 degrees. And so it provides just a really natural marker and just happens to be a nice division in time of something that they need to know, wet and dry seasons. And then this upper picture here, I've just gotten a kind of a modern, this is a more up-to-date satellite image just to sort of see that prominence here and then the Cairo site. So you can see you get a nice photo rendering. So you can put yourself at that point and you can see the effect of the sun rising at that particular time. And like I said, as they noted, when the sun moves, I guess that would be to the east, it's the dry season. When it's moving west, it's the wet season. Okay. So something I wanted to note interesting to us in the paper is they mentioned, sorry, the bar is blocking my text. There we go. So this is the same point, the Cerros point here. same date is in their picture. I made this last night on Google Earth, and I do have the terrain on. So Google's pulling some DEM for information to give you some 3D effect, but it's not as prominent as what they show. And so they mentioned that not only did they combine the Google Earth data, but they used this shuttle radar topography mission data, which was a satellite LiDAR mission. So I think it's just an interesting note for us to make sure we're understanding where our height information is coming from. So their model presents a much more convincing. It looks more convincing to me than if I had to pop down there in Google Earth and do it myself. It's a lot harder to see. So so I just wanted to point that out. They're pulling in some extra data that I don't think Google Earth is necessarily. So that's 5C, the first or second. Sorry, second. The next site that they talk about is structure 6, which is that large platform mound. And building 6B is an almost duplicate, a replica of 5C, the second. And they point out that once that structure is built, it kind of blocks access to that prominent point. So it's sort of, this becomes a much more, I think they imply like an elite, the elite have access to this. They're restricting access to that lower site, and you can't really see 5C, the second, once that structure 6 is built. And then they replicate that building 5C second on top of structure 6, which is 6B. And then shortly afterwards, they then cover up, they say buried under layers of another construction, which is 5C, the first. So not only do they block it, replicate it, but then it kind of gets destroyed. And here's a rendering of the platform mound that they did. And here is that same 70 degrees. I'm sorry, did I have the wrong one here? Well, disregard this picture in the upper right, because I from his website I grabbed some pictures. I thought this was looking at the same thing as 5C, the second.
It looks to me like the lower left is 5C the second, but the upper one sort of, it looks like it's replicating the upper right looks like it's actually the mound.
So these are both from his website, not the paper. I took it to mean when I grabbed them that the left pictures are both, so they're both 5C the second, one just is with the building in view and one's without. And then I thought this was the same event, oops, same event from structure 6, but now the caption that came with it says equinox, which isn't the same. So so I would disregard that. I just added that in there, and now I'm not sure what that is. So but the point is that the point they made in the paper is that you can see the same event from structure 6 that you can see from 5C the second, but they don't show it in the paper. That's why I was grabbing the picture. So sorry about that. And then the last structure is structure 4. And this one's interesting because this one is oriented east-west, unlike the other structures, which are more north-south. They basically have a view of the spring equinox facing east on the 27th. And they do note that it's off slightly. It's a few days off. And they make an argument in the paper that it could be more that it's oriented to the quarter days and not so much the equinox, just to explain those few days difference. I'm not sure. I wish Brian was here. He's more of an expert on the quarter days, but let me see if I have this. What is interesting is there's another. Sorry about that. I think building 29 here, there's other monumental architecture that is lined perfectly east. So, so they are pointing out that they wouldn't have had it off a couple degrees. I think in the paper they have it at like 88 degrees. So it's definitely intentional, whatever the orientation is. Yeah. So here's a diagram from the paper showing its measurement. And so I'm just pointing out that there are other structures on there that are aligned perfectly due east. So the assumption is that's on purpose. What I found interesting in this is they didn't show or say that they used any of the techniques that they developed using virtual reality to do this. This 88 degrees in the discussion just comes from the architectural plans. So I think they could have shown that, or maybe that's what they're showing in that picture I found on his website. It says equinox sunrise, but I'm not sure. So, and then here's just a reconstruction of building 4. So honestly, to make their point with the virtual reality, I think the first 2 structures, 6 and 5C, the second, make the point, and then at the end they kind of add in this extra structure, talk about the spring equinox, but don't really show any of the techniques being used to verify that or show what it looks like from those points. So I think that was my take on the paper, and I think what I wanted to talk about, which I found most interesting, is they start from the landscape orientation. So it seems like the effect that seeing the wet season and dry season is there without the architecture, but it obviously became an important point for this site. And so then they started building buildings and monumental architecture around it to kind of codify that. And again, in the paper, they talk more about the site, which I found is interesting, and not so much the architecture. So they don't use the building, they don't show alignments on the building, which we're used to looking at. It was really just the site's important. And the use of virtual reality models, I think it was refreshing to see that, and I think we should think about that ourselves. I mean, we are building these models, but in how you interact with them is also tricky. You need the right computer software. I tried to find some good screenshots, but he actually was able to incorporate these models into Oculus Rift, so you could put on 3D goggles and actually move around these sites in a completely, truly virtual way. So the author really did take this to kind of that next level where you can interact and experience these sites. And then this is for Rick. I think I really like the codifying the wet season and the dry season, and it gets to this whole question of accuracy and precision and orientation. It works. It serves the purpose. It was obviously important, and it didn't have a this wall and this building lined up with this. I mean, it was, there wasn't that level of precision, but it's a very, I think, compelling site.
I guess the other overall thing I would add, when it's kind of just talking about the overall paper, is that they were also using this to try to document a major change in the culture and the society and their values from a North Zenith, a sun-focused Zenith kind of a program, to a horizontal equinox kind of a program. And so as they were kind of walking through the temporal nature of when these buildings were built, what was built and what was abandoned, they were also kind of focusing on a whole shift of what was sort of the important sites to the society as a whole. And the whole thing took place over, what was it, about 400 years or 300?
Yeah, it wasn't
something
at least. So. Yeah, it wasn't. That was also surprised me. I mean, the first building,
200 years.
Yeah, so within 200 years, this whole thing had happened. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's really one of the key points to the architectural part or the archaeological part of the paper, aside from the VR and all that stuff. Was I think they said diachronic, I think is what they said. This was basically sort of this, the artifacts that they found and where they found them and all of that stuff also pointed towards a totally different social structure and different value system. And everything, as the buildings are built, they're also transitioning from one astronomical value to another astronomical value as the nature of the place is also shifting. So anyway, I found that kind of fascinating. And it's well cited. I guess all of these names are familiar in Central America as far as the people that are cited in paper and all that stuff. So.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed Chris Laser couldn't be here. I mean, this is his bread and butter.
Yeah, that's right, because this is kind of the break.
Yeah, I mean, I can handle the technical stuff, but I think a lot of the nuances were definitely lost on me. So. but I think as a group, I want to reach out to the author, see if he's still doing this. And the other thing is, this is impressive to me, is this is I think 2016. So I got it. This is kind of cutting edge. I mean, that would have been first gen Oculus Rift and a lot of these models. So we've just come so far, and I think we should need to start combining, getting everybody together, so we're not all reinventing the wheel. You know, we're trying to do kind of something similar with Stellarium now, get it in there. I think we should definitely reach out and see if he wants to join and see what he's up to.
Yeah, definitely. I guess it's like Jeff Ryan, I believe his name was, one of the first author.
Jeff Ryan Vidal, yeah. I think I missed his. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the one that's doing the 3D modeling work, and because I'm interested in how they actually, because these are models based on a site plan map, which actually very long time ago I played with that, doing that also, using, I don't know what software he was using for his modeling. Did it say?
I think it mentioned. You did mention a bunch of different softwares, so it is all properly documented. I didn't recognize it. I was looking.
One of the ones I didn't recognize the one he was talking about either.
But he did say SketchUp in the picture. Yeah, he does mention SketchUp, and that diagram does look like SketchUp to me.
It does.
Because if I'm
figure 5 step 2, that does look like SketchUp.
Trying to understand the process. So they build the models, and you know, how do they know how high they are? You know, how tall they would have been. You know, so those might be details, but then they reference these models based on the site plan map, I guess.
Yeah, I think the perimeters and the layout is, I mean, that's well documented in the site plan, and then basically they do reference the original excavation notes. So I'm guessing wall heights, volumes, things like that come from those sites. So that there wasn't anything. There's not like a procedure in the paper, so that's why it's also going to be useful to reach out to them and also see what changed. So I think 2016 SketchUp was still free because we were using SketchUp, remember, for some of the solar model stuff.
I learned to use it when it was free, and then I've had to pay for it ever since.
Yeah, so it's
no, it does look like SketchUp. You know, it seems to me that with our experience out at Wallace, also. I'm sorry, can't just off the bat remember the architect or the archaeologist's name, Bruce. Right. But he's, you know, the first 20 minutes we talked to him, he basically indicated how high every wall was and what was second story and what was third and all that stuff. It's so much, so with so much detail, I kind of lost track really quickly. And it would be interesting to take somebody that really knows that product just to sort of sit with Bruce for about 2 hours, and basically so you could build up that whole Wallace thing with his understanding how tall the walls were, and somebody working off of his site plan and basically just using SketchUp to determine the heights of the walls. I think it could. I think it'd be really interesting to do,
because the models I saw that Jeff was doing were, you know, much better than around here. There's Dennis Holloway does a lot of that kind of modeling also. He did Pueblo Bonito, he did a lot of Sand Canyon, they're more rectilinear rather than as organic as the models that he makes. So you can see the progression there. And you know, back in 2000, I was using 3D Studio Max to actually import actual drawings of walls and set them up, you know, build these models with the actual data. And it was very hard to do. So, but now
SketchUp makes it really easy
with the new technology. So
maybe it's a service we need to learn how to do and provide for the thing.
Well, it's definitely a useful tool. I think that's what got me excited about that was, you know, just from basic site plans, you can put something together and then kind of get in that virtual world and see what we're doing. I mean, we're doing photogrammetry, we love it, but it is a lot of work to get out there. I think you could build a lot of these models with preliminary, you could make preliminary models for sites that we're going to go look at very quickly.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the quality, he does mention on the final steps, a lot of texturing and adding kind of the artistic touches to it. So it's a very rectilinear structures, but then he can add a lot of textures to it.
Right,
so.
right, yeah. Mhm.
And again, this was, 2016. So what they can do now is amazing.
It's way ahead of what I could do in 2000. So
Right, right. No, I was definitely pleasantly surprised. So, well, that's what I have on it. So I think, is any questions or?
any input from our other guests?
Fred? You unmuted. I wasn't sure if it's a prelude to something.
Okay.
Well, as always, we're looking for papers to present and people to present them. So if there's anything that's on you guys' mind that you want to present, just let us know, email me or anybody at the board, and we can definitely try to get you in the sequence. I don't think we have a paper set up for August yet. Evelyn?
Joined us. No, I don't think we have a paper set up for August yet. We do have quite a few upcoming activities in August, though. We're going to be, Society's got a vendor booth, and we're going to be down at the PECOS conference outside of Flagstaff, August 10th through the 12th. And then our society and me in particular are going to be doing a lecture for the Four Corners Lecture Series on August 23rd. And you can sign up for the Zoom version of that too. So we would welcome you to come and sign up for that. And then of course, coming up in September 15th, we have the Canyon Ancient Star Party. And our society is a major contributor and sponsor of their Star Party and working with Canyon Ancients National Monument. And we are going to be featuring some society members at the Star Party as the speakers, Bertram Savadawa, Mary Wiyaki, their partner Lawrence Katernak, and of course, Rick Alling is going to be there too.
Yay.
And so we're looking forward to another great event there. If you happen to be in the area, please come by.
Hi, Evelyn, how are you?
I'm great. Glad
Don't
to
forget
make
to
it.
unmute.
Nice to hear you talk about the PECOS conference. I'll be there, so see you
Oh,
there,
good.
I hope.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Yeah, we're
We're
going to
all-
be doing a Star Party, Rick, and we're going to be doing a Star Party there.
So I'm bringing up several students from our school astronomy club. And so we've got a new special telescope that everybody's going to love. And it's going to be, hopefully the weather will be fine. It's a good moon. As long as the clouds aren't there, it's going to be absolutely spectacular. So we're the Friday night of the PECOS conference, we're doing it. And Greg, I noticed that I don't know if you looked at the website lately, but it really has us prominently listed as sponsor now.
Oh yeah, no, I saw that all.
It took a little while to get that up, but they got
That's
it.
great.
So we're
But it
looking
also
to-
looks like, I'm sorry, yeah. It looks like from the website, we got a little bit of competition for the Star Party. They got an open
Oh,
mic.
yeah, there's an open night night. Yeah, that's all right.
Well, we'll get them all over there. We just have to
Yeah, for sure.
find some.
Evelyn, did you have any comments about the paper tonight? Now that you're on. Nope,
Muted.
you're muted again. Sorry.
I always do that. For some reason, my video is not showing up to me, so I don't
Oh,
know.
you look great.
Anyway, we just got back from 2 weeks in Namibia, which was great. So I'm a bit
Yeah.
behind with lots of things, so I haven't read them. So I'm hoping to hear good things from you guys, but I, for some reason, thought it was 5:30 and I see I'm a bit late, so don't know what I've missed.
No, we got through it pretty quick tonight. So yeah, pretty much right when we ended is when you popped up.
So the Tell me about, I remember you were going to Namibia. What's up? Did you discover anything incredible that we got to see?
Well, you should go to Namibia for the rock art and for the animals, but I can't say that I noticed anything astronomical.
Okay.
I do believe I have a bibliography someplace that there are some papers written that include Southern Africa, but I did not personally notice anything. A couple of just plain old crosses, but that can be anything.
Yeah.
Mostly
We had-
wonderful animals, wonderful people, some nets, some, I don't know, and incredible animals. You should go to Etosha National Park.
I think my
Water
mom went there
holes.
way back when. Yeah.
We have at ASU, we have a faculty member that works there. Her thing is desertification, sort of just changing in desert climates over history, Earth history, and that's her area of study. So
Actually,
she's
the
got a-
dark skies were marvelous, and
I bet they would be. Yeah,
and
there's some- I
the,
think there's some constellations they have down there that we don't get to see.
oh, that was so much fun. I loved going
Was it?
out, oh, there's the Southern Cross,
Yeah.
just seeing the Milky Way from such a different perspective and the dark clouds. And I don't know, just luckily
Yeah.
I've been to the Southern Hemisphere quite a bit because my sister lives in Australia. So I already have familiar with some of them, but it was,
And
that was a delight.
And of
It
course,
was,
there
of
are-
course, winter solstice, so I thought maybe there'd be, some sort of actions, but it seemed like it really wasn't much of a cultural thing.
I guess their Orion is upside down too. Because it's probably not the season for Orion. But
Well,
if
and
you
I'm a
could see it-
Scorpio person, so that one was
Oh, yeah,
interesting.
that's right. See it straight up overhead.
About it.
I guess a short one this week. We'll try to get this posted soon, so Evelyn, you can catch up when you get caught up.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you all for coming, and we'll see you in a month.